Hey there, campers. Well, this is the end of March, and this is episode 7. I recently got back from my first camping trip of the year. It went super quickly, and I honestly didn't have any time to do really any videos. But then it started to rain, so that really killed any hopes of trying to video anything properly. But you know what? I am still glad that I was out there. I still found myself breathing in the fresh air and being in the green. My kids and I, along with our giant doggy Walter, headed to South Carolina, and it was so good to get some sun and beautiful weather. And honestly, we can't wait to get back to South Carolina. We're, in fact, already planning our next trip. So, like I say, camper, get out there and ground yourself in the green. It has an amazing way of calming the mind and letting you think and feel more clearly. For tonight's campfire ghost story, let's take a big plunge and head over to Vermont. Specifically, the Long Trail in Bennington. This trail is 272 miles long. There are specific designated areas for camping and backpacking, as this trail goes through some private, state, and federal lands, so you need to check where you're going to be and verify what type of camping is allowed. There are fire regulations depending on whether you're, again, in the state, federal, or private land. So please, in order to keep this trail camper friendly, let's please abide by their requests. Also, campers, this is not an easy trail to hike. On average, it takes about 25 to 30 days to hike and backpack. But there are some amazing, quiet, and out-of-the-way boondock spots where you can go and collect your thoughts and enjoy your time out there in the green. Especially in Green Mountain National Forest. That is a beautiful area, and I highly recommend going out there for a visit. And while you're out there visiting, collecting your thoughts, and getting out into the green, why don't I tell you a few ghost stories? At the south end of the trail is the Glastonbury Mountains and the Bennington Triangle, a phrase coined by Joseph Citro in a radio interview in 1992. The Bennington Triangle is reported to be one of the most haunted places in Vermont. The eeriness doesn't even encompass the multitude of sightings of ghosts. But not just ghosts. There are Bigfoot sightings and UFOs as well. Odd flashing lights, odd smells, and apparently the Bennington Monster, which has also been referred to as a Bigfoot. Between 1940 and 1950, up to 10 people have disappeared from the Bennington Triangle area. November 12, 1945, a 74-year-old veteran woodsman, Mitty Rivers, decided to hike back separately from his hunting group and was never seen again. A search ensued, and the only evidence found was a single rifle cartridge found in a stream. Now, nobody can confirm that this cartridge, in fact, belonged to Mitty Rivers, but it was some piece of evidence, and they went with it. A year later, December 1st, 1946, Paula Weldon, an 18-year-old college student from Bennington, hitched a ride to Long Trail for a solitary hike. She had just finished working, had gone to her apartment, let her roommate know where she was going, changed her clothes, and headed out the door. She was dropped off and even seen by an elderly couple who were hiking behind her, when she took a turn and disappeared. A search and a $5,000 reward brought no evidence, and she was never found. Author Shirley Jackson was inspired by Paula's disappearance and wrote a book called Hangs a Man in 1951. In 1949, another person went missing. This was James E. Tedford. James had gotten on a bus, heading from family to Bennington. Somewhere along that line, he vanished. All that was found was his luggage still in the luggage rack and an open bus timetable on his empty seat. No one saw a thing. 4 years later, on October 12, 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson had accompanied his mother when she went to feed some pigs. Leaving Paul in their truck to play, his mother was gone for only about an hour. When she returned, Paul was gone. History states that bloodhounds had picked up the trail and followed that trail to a road. At that road, the scent was lost. The exact spot, though, was near a highway, and it was the same spot where Paula had vanished just 4 years earlier. Now 2 weeks later, October 28, 1950, 53-year-old Frida Langer also vanished with no rhyme or reason. While out hiking with her cousin, she had fallen into a nearby lake. She told him to wait there while she headed back to change and would catch back up with him. But alas, she was never seen. When her cousin returned to camp, he found that she had never even made it back, and a search soon began. This search lasted 2 weeks with 5 separate searches, aircraft, helicopters, and nearly 300 searchers, none of which found a trace of Frida. But here, campers, we have a twist. On May 12, 1951, almost a year later, the remains of Frida's body was found only 3.5 miles from the campsite, next to Deerfield River. The area was reported to have been searched lightly. Unfortunately, no cause of death could be determined due to the condition of the remains. Connie Smith, only 10 years of age, was last seen hiking July 19, 1952. At the time, Connie, whose full name was Constance Christine Smith, was spending her summer at Camp Sloan in Salisbury, Connecticut. Apparently, Connie had told her friends that she was skipping breakfast and going to the dispensary to drop off an ice pack. Instead, she walked away from camp, later being seen on Indian Mountain Road picking daisies along the roadside and asking for rides to get to Lakeville, Connecticut. They believed that she was trying to get home. One report states that she had gotten into a fight with some other campers, and it was possible she had become homesick and wanted to go home. Her last known whereabouts were walking along U.S. Route 44 with her thumb out. She had no money and just the clothes on her back, and it was reported that she needed glasses in order to see, but she had not taken them with her. Later that afternoon, camp counselors discovered she was gone. They searched and searched, but found nothing. Then we come to April 3rd, 1936, when Catherine Hall, a stenographer, was going on a walk near Lebanon Springs in New York. She was last seen only 40 miles from Bennington. She was only 22. 7 years later, December 11th, 1943, a hunter named Howard D. Boland stumbled upon a skull and a hip bone wedged in the crevice of a tree. Through dental records, it was determined that those bones belonged to Catherine. These remains were found near Lebanon Mountain Road, only about 2 miles from her home. What we have here are unknown and mysterious vanishings of a variety of people. Some experienced hiker and woods folk. Some just out for leisurely strolls. Some were young, some were old. Some were men and some were female. Was it supernatural forest-type energies taking these people? A wild animal? That Bennington monster? Or was it a human? We'll get back to this one, camper. But for right now, let me tell you about Robert Singley. Robert was one who lived to tell his own tale of Bennington Triangle. One Sunday morning, he decided to take a walk down Harbor Road in Woodford Hollow one Sunday morning. I'm mentioning this particular place because this is where Paula Weldon had last been seen, and also the last place where the bloodhounds had followed the scent of 8-year-old Paul. Anyone who has experienced the Bennington Triangle reports an eerie feeling. And I know, eerie feelings, they're a dime a dozen. But after listening to Robert's story, I definitely understand what he means when he says eerie feeling. Now, this wasn't the first time Robert has hiked here in Bennington. Robert is a composer and had been working on a string quartet. He knew the area and knew where he wanted to go to clear his mind. Reaching the top of Bald Mountain, he there had his lunch and worked on his music. As he returned, he noted that the white rocks were on the west side of him, and his car should naturally be 3 miles away on the east side. But after walking about 5 miles, a fog began to roll in, and his trail vanished. Robert reported that right before he lost the trail, everything sort of crescendoed into a weird sort of dizzying confusion. It just suddenly got dark, and then it was like, where am I? Whether you're an experienced camper, hiker, or explorer, or whether you're not, the key thing to do when you realize you are lost is to stay calm. Robert had dressed for the dreary cold weather. He even packed a lamp, just in case. On that cold night, as the darkness circled around him, he pulled out the lamp, only to find it was broken. Robert later says that he found refuge under a large maple tree. Without a lamp or any light source, Robert described this tree as giving a weird sort of haunting energy, one that he couldn't avoid and was drawn to. Once underneath, he began searching in the dark for wood to start a fire, and he claims all he could find were animal bones. Eventually, he found some dry birch and started a fire with pages from his composition book. Now, the next morning, Robert made his way towards where he believed his car was parked. After 3 to 4 miles, he came to a wilderness sign. It stated that he was near Goddard's Shelter. Goddard's Shelter was on the other side of the mountain camper. On the ridge side, 6 to 7 miles away from where he believed he had been. So to do a quick recap, Robert parks his car on the east side of White Rock, had his lunch only about 3 miles away on top of Bald Mountain. Less than 12 hours from when he had lunch, he had walked 7 miles to the other side of the mountain. Unable to find a reason for this, he turned around and began walking back. He reached the maple tree that had provided him shelter that previous night, and once he passed it looking for the trail, he said that it was completely foreign to him. The trail he found was covered with pines that he didn't recognize and downed trees that would have made him stumble. They would have required him to climb over to get through the path. It made no sense to him. While he continued walking, not knowing where he was, luckily, Vermont State Police discovered Robert at 11:30 Monday morning. Robert tried to describe where he was, but he still cannot pinpoint his location. So, even before Citro's 1992 interview, where he first coined the phrase the Bennington Triangle, the indigenous peoples had warned the early colonizers of the mysterious occurrences that happened in that area. They themselves would not live there and warned the families that it was not safe. The indigenous warned that it was only used as a burial grounds, believing that it was cursed. There is even reported that a man-eating stone is there with an appetite for the lowly traveler. Where this stone is, we don't know. But somehow, some way, those traveling alone find their way to this stone and disappear. Bennington was actually founded in 1761 by Benning Wentworth. And those families that ignored the indigenous warnings would report strange lights, strange sounds, and even eerie smells. They even reported a Bigfoot type of monster attacking the villagers. And this was back in the early 1800s. Now, campers, I would be doing an injustice to some of those who have gone missing in the Bennington Triangle. Like I said earlier, we don't know if it was supernatural or not, but when a suspect is found, when someone is convicted and found guilty, I feel it is important to mention it, to share it. Like I said, ghosts and the supernatural can be just as scary as the living people. Now, when we discussed Connie Smith's disappearance, there was a suspect. Enter William Henry Redmond. Redmond was born in Ohio and became a carny. He was known as being ill-tempered, a quote-unquote hard man, and one who never seemed to smile. Redmond was suspected in the murders and sexual assaults of more little girls than anyone should be allowed. Living the life of a carny, though, meant traveling, and it is believed that for decades Redmond traveled with the carnival, abusing and murdering little girls as he went from city to city. But no matter where he went, he always seemed to attract the attention of local police. He was first arrested in Ohio in 1935 when he attacked 2 little girls in Lancaster, Ohio. Then again, in 1938, he attempted to rape another young girl, this one barely a teenager. Then he was caught again, this time in Florida, for sexual assault of another teen in 1949. It's clear, camper, that this trend is just building and building inside of him, and I am sorry that it isn't the fun ghost story, but again, I feel these girls need their stories told. So the disappearance and murder of these girls was never pinned on Redmond, but it is a strong belief he was guilty. In fact, an inmate had told the cops Redmond had stated, "They may have me on this one, but not the others." The one he was referring to was Jane Marie Althoff. She was only 8 years old, and in 1951, her body was found in the back of a pickup truck on the carnival grounds just south of Philadelphia. Redmond's fingerprints were found in the truck. She had been molested and strangled. It should be noted that he was not indicted and found guilty till 1988. Joanne Lynn was 11 years old. She was found shot dead September 30th, 1949, outside Rochester, New York. Redmond was working only 9 kilometers away. On April 25th, 1951, we know that was when little Jane Marie was found. On August 24th, 1951, Beverly Potts was just 10-year-old and had attended the local carnival in her hometown of Cleveland. She disappeared and has never been seen again. Then we have Connie Smith, who we mentioned earlier, who was last seen trying to hitchhike her way home from her summer camp. The police had Redmond suspected for this one also. Then there was 8-year-old Barbara Gracka. Her body was found March 31st, 1955, in an abandoned Detroit parking lot. She had been missing for a week. When the police found her, she had been raped and murdered. But you want to hear the real kicker, camper? The police had actually brought Redmond in for the murder of Jane Marie. He even said to them that Jane Marie had been bothering him by asking for more rides when he smothered her to shut her up. However, a few months later, when police issued an arrest, Redmond was gone, and he wasn't brought back until 1988. A search of his home revealed a multitude of little girls' soiled panties. Now hold on tight, camper, because a judge then ruled that the detectives were not doing things by the book and let Redmond out on bail for $1. And to add one more crazy turn in this story, as the detectives in Detroit, Cleveland, and New York were waiting for DNA to confirm what everyone believed, William Henry Redmond died at the age of 70 in 1992 of acute emphysema and heart problems. Well, campers, that was a wild Vermont trip. And as this campfire winds down, I do encourage you to visit beautiful Long Trail in Vermont, but do so safely. Always let someone know where you'll be and set up a time for when you should be checking in. Always have a first aid kit with you, a map, or some form of GPS. Always keep some sort of light, flashlight, lantern with you also. And trust your gut instinct. Go where you feel safe. If something triggers that gut, raises the hair on your neck, listen to it. Now, since this podcast is focused around camping, campfires, ghost stories, and legends, I would love to hear your own personal ghost stories while out camping. Please feel free to send me your personal camping stories, and they may have the chance of being shared on the podcast. Names can, of course, be omitted or changed as per your request. Let's keep the traditions of campfire ghost stories alive. You can send your experiences via email to campfireghoststories8@gmail.com. That's campfireghoststories8@gmail.com. Be safe, camper, and happy camping.